Welcome to TJK Shares, TJK One-on-One. As we promised you, we bring you people who have done transformational work, change makers, so you can learn and relearn some things. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to bring a brother, a friend, change maker, and transformational work. Man who has done so much transformational work in this world, not only in Uganda, but all over the world. My friend, Robert Kabushenga. Welcome, sir. TJK.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I was wondering who you were describing, actually. So I was trying which friend you were talking about. Such generous description. Yeah. Well, for the benefit of your audience, just so people can know, I live in Kampala, in Uganda. My home is 7 kilometers from yours, in southwestern Uganda.
Yes.
And I am married with one wife and 3 children who are now transitioning into young adult life. And so I'm currently involved in all sorts of things, I think the way I describe myself now is I'm rebuilding a whole new person.
Yes, I want to go deeper and talk about the something that is so special that you've done and continue to talk about, which is mental health and what our people have really suffered with mental health in our communities, and we still don't give it the limelight it deserves. And I know this is personal in a way also. So talk a little bit about mental health and why specifically it is so important for you to talk about. And you can.
So let me start at the beginning. So I get involved in mental health through a very direct and a very personal situation.
Yes, sir.
So my father, it is believed, or I was told that from about the age of 14, he started to show signs of mental health problems. And it persisted throughout his life until he died. It is only much later, when he was an adult, that they began to realize that this was actually schizophrenia. And his journey, to me, is in many respects a journey of the evolution of our understanding of mental health. So at the time when he first shows signs of mental health, our knowledge, or the knowledge in Uganda about mental health, was not actually there. And in fact, people with mental health problems were ostracized actively.
True. Yeah.
So they were not, they just, they were totally disregarded. In fact, they were called mad, which is a word I don't use in reference to. In fact, it wasn't even thought of as an illness. Now, if even in the medical field, psychiatry, there were not that many people dealing with mental health problems.
That's true.
I don't understand. Now, imagine in rural Uganda, where people had a very zero, even for modern medicine, it was a problem. Illnesses were interpreted in purely spiritual terms.
Yes.
And so mental health was perceived as a result of witchcraft, curses, divine intervention. Nobody ever sat down to think this is a medical condition and it can be treated. So for a very long time in my family, the thought was that my father was suffering because of a curse from my grandfather's brother, who felt that he had been unfairly treated in the home, and so he cursed him. There are those who understand curses. Yes. I don't know how to explain it, but somebody wishes you bad luck or ill will, and then as fate would have it, the ill will actually happens. I lived with my father in some of the worst moments of mental health. And then that's the time even I got to understand that mental health is actually purely scientific medical problem that can be managed through modern medicine. You just have to get the right diagnosis, find the right medication, and provide the right context. Of course, there's some extreme cases where people have to be hospitalized, they have to be restrained because sometimes they get violent. But remember that they are acting on their impulses. They are not predisposed to be like that.
That's right, yes.
And there's one thing people misunderstand about people who suffer from schizophrenia, because it's one of the most extreme forms, or depression. Please, please, please be very careful. Anybody who is, don't never say things to those people, to people with a mental health problem, thinking that because they have a breakdown, they don't understand what you're saying and will never remember. They actually understand everything you say, and they will remember everything you said when they were sick. Yes. The only difference is that at that material time, they are not in control of their faculties and can't respond like the rest of us.
Yes.
So that's one aspect of mental health, that you see a person suffering because they're struggling so much to take control of their thought process, but failing. And in that gap where they fail, they go through some really horrible experiences. They get, I want you to imagine, Jackson, when you're sitting and watching a horror movie, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you'll switch it off and go away, or you can avoid. Now imagine you being completely unable to do anything, and you see in your mind you're being attacked by animals, all sorts of vermin and things that are so negative. You are in such anguish, but there's nothing you can do. You can't stop the thought process, you can't intervene until you're so exhausted that you sleep. Sometimes sleep can elude you for days.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's the suffering that they go through. And I had a first-hand, or shall I say, I had a courtside seat.
Yes. At the front side, yes, right in
front row. Now, the second thing about mental health that people don't understand, and that's why I'm passionate about it and I like to talk about it, is it inflicts so much trauma on the people
around you
who now are dealing with the person who is suffering. So I want you to imagine you having to take care of a patient, but and how much that affects you emotionally. But I want you to multiply that by 100 when you're dealing with a mental health patient. It is so painful. And the problem with it is, let the patient you are trying to assist then becomes so hostile to you and can use language and in ways that you feel, why am I having to go through all of this? Why am I the one who has to experience this situation? And then fate will ask you, but why not you? If not you, then who?
If not you, then who?
Exactly. So those two situations separated, the carers and their emotional trauma, plus the person who has suffered the illness and the trauma. So there's just so much trauma going on. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I introduced ourselves saying people come here to learn and relearn. We still have so many situations, Robert, in our communities, in Kanungu, in Busia, in Nikalamoja, where mental health is still misunderstood to this day as we speak in 2023. And people are still being called mad, witchcraft, and Mloji, Mulalu, all these different languages in Uganda. But I also have a colleague at Harvard who is working on the worldwide problem on mental health. And his question to me recently was, what resources are available in Uganda? Do you know resources that are available to our people right now in the country?
Yes. So there is now a fully fledged hospital on the suburbs of Kampala that specializes Then there is also a wing at the National Referral Hospital in Mulago.
Okay.
And some of the main hospitals will have a resident psychiatrist to sort of handle. The biggest problem is that the medication for mental health is very expensive and may not necessarily be available. And because, and excuse my language, but I think I can take liberties because I have been through it. Because it's such a fringe illness, you don't get that much sympathy and public support in terms of saying this is a public health issue, let's try and find ways to deal with it. So it takes sort of a peripheral approach. So if they're going to buy medicine for cancer, if the country is importing drugs for diabetes or trying to deal with malaria and public health, mental health is so far down the food chain.
Yes.
So that's one. Two, I am not even sure that insurance companies actually cover
they don't.
medical. They don't. So you have to deal with cash up front, I'm afraid.
Yes.
And that just adds to the cost. And so you think I am going to live with this situation for the rest of my life. That's why people now, out of desperation, resort to supposed miracle workers and witchcraft. So if they're not doing night prayers to have their child to heal, they are trying to get a witch doctor to sort things out because they cannot explain what causes mental health. But now there is so much knowledge and information. And how did I arrive at abandoning all of this witchcraft stuff? Because I had been persuaded. I was very persuaded that the only solution to my dad was to go and find a really potent witch doctor who can give him the right magic potion and sorts it out. So it is I had a cousin who is a medical doctor who explained to me that it is purely a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Exactly. Yep.
That's it.
Yes.
So what's the solution? Introduce external chemicals to connect the wires, if you may put it that way.
Exactly.
It's not any different from diabetes, because diabetes arises out of one enzyme failing. That's insulin.
Exactly.
So if there is an enzyme or a hormone in the brain which is failing, if you can rebalance it properly, the person can live a good quality life.
That is right.
When my dad got that treatment, you cannot believe. My dad was a foreign service officer. He served until he reached the highest rank as an ambassador. He wasn't posted as an ambassador, but he achieved the rank. So if you have anyone, any loved one, any friend, anybody who is having mental health problems, seek medical advice and stick to it.
Exactly.
It makes a world of a difference. And also, if in your family you have a history of mental health, then you start to look around. First, watch, are there signs of any other members beginning to struggle? Then you also need to be very careful about certain things. Number one, mind-altering substances. Yes. People who, if you in your family, you have a history of mental health problems or you're predisposed, walk away. Avoid mind-altering substances because they then accelerate. That's number one.
That's
number
two. You better name them. Alcohol.
It's alcohol. It's drugs.
Marijuana.
Yes.
Njaga,
anything that you, let's just say anything that you ingest that's likely to alter the chemical imbalance in your brain. It will already predisposes you to mental health problems. Secondly is, if you can, avoid acute stress. Avoid acute stress. Never put yourself in circumstances where you will be so stressed, because the moment you become so stressed, your brain will struggle, and that could also trigger that imbalance one way or the other. 3, avoid violence and violent trauma. Those three elements are so critical for mental health.
That's right.
By the way, I talked about mind-altering substances, but also how you manage your relationships.
Yes.
Emotional health. If you have no emotional health and you have no balanced life, you're predisposed to mental health. And these days, the scope of mental health has increased from just the medical extreme conditions, but also, you know, Jackson, you may be there seemingly normal, but you may go through some traumatizing circumstances, like say what we went through during COVID.
Exactly.
And you might go through a depression, and you don't even know you're going through a depression.
That's very true. Just like people had COVID and didn't even know had COVID.
I think I did like 5 times, and I had no clue.
Robert, this even if we stopped our conversation right here, this is very, very important.
Yeah.
Because we face so many challenges in the mental health area. I will be talking to a doctor soon about this specific and treatments and how. But I wanted you to bring it up. This affected your father. You saw it firsthand. You saw him suffer. But you also mentioned depression and stress. Our people all over the world suffer from these and refuse to get help because people still look at it as a shame. How do I go see a therapist? How do I go see a counselor? Help is there. We all struggle. People, let's get help, because anybody, none of us are actually normal walking out people. If you don't have the depression, you have the stress, you have this, we all have stuff. And people who are professionals to handle them are there.